Welcome back to the Tao of MGTOW. My name is Ayam Sirias. This is part 2, and today I'm going to continue reading from the book The Tao of Health, Sex and Longevity by Daniel Reid. And today's topic is the sexual matriarchy. And you have to see that in regards to history, although we are often taught that a patriarchy ruled all, I am very confident that in believing it was a matriarchy. Women called the shots, but they called the shots from behind closed doors. And they did it through sex and sexuality and their controlling and domination of sex. Now, what I'm about to read to you is going to show you a little bit about how women dominate sexuality, not just through social means, but also biological means, and how men have consistently been at the short end of the stick when it comes to sexuality and sex and procreation, and that sexuality is the dominating factor when it comes to the evolution of society and our species. So sit down and enjoy. I'm about to continue reading from the book The Tao of Health, Sex and Longevity by Daniel Reid. Thank you for listening.
The nature of man and woman. The essential difference between the sexual nature of man and woman lies in the different nature of male and female orgasm. When a man ejaculates, he ejects his semen essence from his body. When a woman reaches orgasm, she too ejaculates all sorts of sexual secretions internally, but these are retained within her body. For both men and women, sexual essence is an important storage battery for vital energy and a major source of resistance and immunity. In conventional sexual relations, a man ejaculates every time he has intercourse, regardless of whether his partner reaches orgasm or not, and regardless of his own age or condition. This habit gradually robs him of his primary source of vitality and immunity, leaving him weak and vulnerable to disease and shortening his lifespan. Meanwhile, the woman gets stronger and stronger, both from her own orgasmic secretions and from her assimilation of potent male semen essence.
When I was 21 years old and reading this book, this material, I decided to put it into practice. And from that practice and the experience of that practice, I realized that the author of this book was actually very correct in what he was saying. There are too many young men today that don't realize their potential when it comes to sex and male sexuality. I practiced not giving my semen during the act of sex to women, and it worked out very well. It allowed me to concentrate on my own satisfaction instead of hers. But because most young men regard sex as this act that must satisfy a woman, but not himself, well, this is what creates a very big divide between the sexes. Men have been the losers when it comes to sex, women the winners. And many young men need to understand this. And for me, as I read this book and I put it into practice, it was the beginning of my understanding that my sexual satisfaction was not beholden to a woman and her desires. Now, I'll continue reading.
The different nature of male and female orgasm is reflected in the various slang terms to describe that magic moment in both the Chinese and Western languages. The most common Chinese term for female orgasm is gao chao, literally high tide, a graphic and poetic image drawn from nature. But when a man ejaculates, the Chinese say that he has lost his essence, thrown it away, leaked semen, or surrendered. If a man ejaculates before his partner reaches orgasm, the Chinese say that she has killed him. The French refer to ejaculation as le petit mort, or little death. By patterning their sexual relations on the models of heaven and earth and conforming to the nature of yin and yang, men may derive life-giving benefits from the sexual forces, rather than being forever at their mercy. Instead of depleting precious stores of essence and energy, sex may be used to replenish them. Classically, appropriate analogies were drawn between human nature and Mother Nature, which illuminated the basic qualities of man and woman. Appropriate principles drawn from those analogies were then applied to regulate human sexual relations. As the Han Dynasty adept Wu Xian put it, the male belongs to Yang. Yang's nature is such that the male is easily aroused, but also quick to retreat. The female belongs to Yin. Yin's nature is such that the female is slow to be aroused, and also slow to be satiated.
The world is run by this matriarchy of women's sexuality. Now, on the outside, we always seem to think that it forms the shape of a penis, but on the inside, no, it is a vagina, and that vagina pulls the strings. In fact, I'm very surprised that most men do not see this. For every male leader, whether politician or king, whether east or west, regardless of the power that he seems to control, behind him was always the puppet master of vagina. This is the biggest secret that the controlling sexual matriarchy does not want you to know. Now, I'll continue reading.
Throughout the animal and insect world, nature has fashioned the female as a superior specimen, uniquely equipped for the survival and propagation of the species. According to the law of the jungle, the male exists only to provide the seed for future generations, and to protect the nest while the female nurses the young to maturity. Sexual intercourse occurs seasonally, and while all females in heat get fertilized, only a small fraction of the strongest males perform the task. Even among primates, only the strong, dominant males are permitted to fertilize the females, while weaker male specimens are either discarded or kept at a distance from the herd. Among many orders of insects, such as black widow and praying mantis, nature gives the male even shorter shrift. The moment he deposits his seed in the female, she promptly kills and devours him as a post-coital snack.
Now, my fellow MGTOWs, are you just a post-coital snack? Is that all you are? Are you the victim of your own falsely guided genitalia? Well, I'll tell you, it's time to wake up, especially you younger men. And it's time to go your own way. Don't allow this key, this linchpin of our depression, aka the vagina, to dominate you. The power is in you. Simply exploit it. All right. Now, I'm going to continue reading.
Only humans and a few higher primates, such as orangutans, engage in sexual intercourse all year long, day and night, in any season or weather, and only humans do it primarily for pleasure rather than procreation. Yet the human male, despite his inflated ego, is subject to the same inherent limitations that nature has imposed on his gender in all species. Matriarchy is a social acknowledgement of female superiority and is therefore a natural pattern of the human species to follow. China's prehistoric matriarchy is still reflected in Chinese language and thought. The single most common word in the Chinese language is hao, which means good in all its various senses. The ideogram for good consists of the symbol for women, placed next to that for child, indicating that the highest good is the generative relationship between mother, not father, and child. The ideogram that denotes the word surname in Chinese consists of the symbols for woman and birth, clearly indicating that family descent in prehistoric China was traced through the mother's line, just as it was in ancient Hebrew tradition prior to patriarchy. In all the ancient Chinese sex manuals, women is always depicted as the guardians of sexual arcana and the supreme source of life-sustaining essence and energy. In these texts, the woman plays the role of the great initiator and teacher of sex, while the man is described as the sexually ignorant bumbler.
Now, the author of this book stated in the last reference I gave that, quoting, family descent in prehistoric China was traced through the mother's line, just as it was in ancient Hebrew tradition prior to patriarchy. Now, I agree with the author's idea that maternity has always been the trump card in regards to human social evolution. But I do disagree when he says that after that there was some kind of patriarchy. But in reality, there was never a patriarchy. There never has been, even until today. There was only men competing with one another over the vaginal power of matriarchy. But I digress. Let me continue reading.
Because of her sexual potency, woman was regarded as possessor of great stores of te, power. The contemporary Taoist Zhou Chang, in his book The Tao of the Loving Couple, quotes some conclusions by Mary Jane Shurfey regarding the power of female sexuality. Quoting, "All relevant data from the 12,000 to 8,000 BC period indicate that pre-civilized women enjoyed full sexual freedom and was often totally incapable of controlling her sexual drive. Therefore, I propose that one of the reasons for the long delay between the earliest development of the agricultural, circa 12,000 BC, and the rise of urban life and the beginning of recorded knowledge, circa 8,000 to 5,000 BC, was the ungovernable cyclic sexual drive of women. Not until these drives were gradually brought under control by rigidly enforcing social codes could family life become the stabilizing and creative crucible from which modern civilized man could emerge. Although man took over control of the family, village, economy, religion, and state, he still found himself at woman's mercy in bed. No amount of human artifice can mask or alter the fundamental facts of Tao. Hence, there arose a deep contradiction between man's artificial social superiority and his genuine sexual inferiority vis-a-vis woman. And this gave rise to the battle of the sexes that still rages in most boudoirs today. It also explains the deep fear and resentment that many men harbor toward women, despite woman's supposed inferiority. Macho men simply cannot face the fact that women are sexually superior, nor do they dare admit the realities of their own inherent sexual weakness. This sad state of affairs is due primarily to sexual ignorance. Any man open-minded enough to take a serious look at the Tao of yin and yang and self-disciplined enough to practice it will find that the Tao completely eliminates the fundamental inequality between male and female sexual potency. The Tao enables the male member to become an all-weather instrument of equal competence to that of its female counterpart, and permits man and woman to make love, not war, while at the same time protecting the health and prolonging the lives of both partners.
The battlefield between the sexes has always existed on the front line of sex and sexuality. The difference between a penis and a vagina. Unfortunately, men have never been taught how to deal with this difference in real life and real time. I mean, consider the gynocentric control of education. Young boys are taught to bow to women at a very young age, and even considering secondary education. Men just do not exist in those spaces. The world is designed to teach women to dominate. But you cannot say that to your average person. They don't understand. We as MGTOW, we must take control of this idiocracy, because that is what it is. We are being dominated and controlled by idiots. I mean, this is our birthright as men. In today's world, even questioning the power of woman's sexual matriarchy, it might get a man killed or imprisoned, and we've seen it before. It is so powerful that we often don't see it, because we as men were trained not to see it. Now, you, as a man, as a MGTOW, understand this. Sexuality is what drives our species. The drive to procreate is stronger than even the drive to eat. So understand this. This is how we have been controlled from the very beginning. Do not let it control you anymore. Go your own way. Be MGTOW. Be a man, and be the next step in our evolution, the evolution of our species. Thank you for listening, my brothers, and stay tuned for the next episode of this series. I'll see you again, and good night.